Imagine waking up one morning and realizing everything you've worked for, your savings, your retirement, your peace of mind has vanished overnight. That's exactly what happened to Amanda, a 52-year-old woman who lost over $300,000 in a sophisticated investment scam. Her story isn't just shocking, it's a warning, and it could happen to you. Before we dive into this jaw-dropping case, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story that could save your financial life. Also, comment below if you've ever been approached with an investment that sounded too good to be true. Now, let's begin Amanda's story. Amanda was a recently retired marketing executive from Illinois. After 3 decades of corporate work, she finally had time and money to enjoy her life. Her retirement fund was solid, her house was paid off, and she was dreaming of buying a lake house to spend her summers in peace. But Amanda had one more goal: growing her savings through smart investments. That's where the danger began. One afternoon, she received a LinkedIn message from a man named Richard Evans, who claimed to be a private equity consultant working with high-net-worth individuals. His profile looked professional, his connections seemed legitimate, and his language was persuasive yet humble. He told her he was expanding access to a special fund for a limited number of early retirees looking for safe, high-yield opportunities. Amanda was intrigued. The promise? A 12% monthly return. Amanda had heard of high-yield opportunities before, but they always seemed unrealistic until now. Richard didn't come across like a salesman. He sounded more like a mentor. He explained that he only worked with select clients, and Amanda had been referred by one of his former colleagues, someone she had indeed worked with years ago. That little detail instantly lowered her guard. It felt personal, intentional. She agreed to a Zoom call. Richard appeared well-dressed, articulate, sitting in what looked like a high-end home office. He shared slides, charts, and even third-party reviews of the fund. It looked legitimate. He emphasized that this wasn't about getting rich quick, but rather about preserving wealth with consistent growth. That phrase stuck with Amanda. She wasn't greedy, just wanted stability. After a week of conversations, she agreed to start with a $10,000 transfer as a test investment. Within a month, she received her first return, $1,200 deposited directly into her account. It worked. Amanda was impressed but cautious. She asked for documentation, and Richard provided it: statements, tax reports, legal disclaimers. Everything appeared professional. She even had her accountant look at it, who didn't find anything unusual. The real hook came when Richard offered her access to a Tier 2 fund. This new level required a $100,000 minimum investment but promised priority placement and greater dividends. He warned her, spots are filling fast. It was a classic pressure tactic, but Amanda didn't see it that way. To her, it was a rare chance to grow her savings faster than traditional markets ever allowed. She took the plunge. The transfer was made, and once again, the return came like clockwork. Amanda's confidence was growing. Over the next 4 months, she invested an additional $190,000, bringing her total investment to $300,000. Every time she deposited more, the payouts came in like magic. She told a few close friends and even considered introducing her younger brother to the opportunity. It felt too good to be kept secret. But just as Amanda was preparing her brother's introduction, something changed. The next scheduled deposit didn't arrive. She waited a day, then 2. She reached out to Richard. No response. He's probably just traveling, she thought. But something in her gut was off. After 3 days, Richard finally replied. He apologized profusely, blaming a technical issue with the fund's overseas partners. He assured her everything was being sorted and that she'd receive double the amount next cycle to compensate. Amanda wanted to believe him, but the following week, there was still no deposit. She tried calling. No answer. Emailed. Nothing. She searched for Richard's LinkedIn profile. It was gone. Panic set in. She Googled his name and suddenly found forums filled with complaints. Scammer alert. Richard Evans stole $200,000 from my mother. Do not trust this man. It's fake. Her chest tightened. She called her bank, but the wire transfers had gone through weeks ago. Irreversible. She contacted a lawyer. He confirmed her worst fear. This wasn't just fraud, it was a sophisticated, long-running scam. Amanda's entire retirement cushion had vanished. And the worst part, she had no one to blame but herself. She had trusted too much, acted too fast, ignored too many red flags. Her dream of a lake house, gone. Her peace of mind, shattered. The psychological toll hit harder than the financial loss. Amanda couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. She withdrew from her friends. She felt humiliated. How could she, an educated professional, fall for something like this? The shame was paralyzing. Every time she thought about it, her chest would tighten with regret and rage. The scam wasn't just about money. It was about trust, vulnerability, and identity. For weeks, she avoided telling anyone. But the debt collectors didn't wait. Part of her investment had been made using a home equity loan. Now payments were due, and she had nothing to show for it. Amanda reached out to local law enforcement, but they were powerless. This was an international scam. The FBI had already been contacted by others, but they admitted the chances of recovery were slim to none. In desperation, Amanda turned to online support groups for scam victims. There, she met others who had been deceived by similar tactics. Elderly couples, young professionals, even small business owners. That's when she realized Edge wasn't alone. This wasn't a mistake made by stupid people. It was the result of calculated, high-level psychological manipulation. She began to slowly speak out, first in forums, then in podcasts, and eventually, she shared her full story in a live interview on a financial safety channel. The video went viral, thousands commented. Dozens reached out, thanking her for the courage to speak up. Amanda finally started to feel some form of healing, not from getting her money back, but from reclaiming her voice. Amanda's case became part of a larger investigation into a fraud ring operating across 5 countries. The scammers used fake identities, AI-generated voices, and clone websites to build trust with victims. They had defrauded over 200 people in total, stealing more than $18 million collectively. But Amanda's public story helped the authorities piece things together. Her detailed record, screenshots, emails, contracts came key evidence. After nearly a year, Interpol managed to arrest 2 of the perpetrators. Unfortunately, most of the money was never recovered. It had been quickly laundered through crypto accounts and offshore entities. Still, Amanda's decision to speak up had a lasting impact. She was invited to financial literacy panels, helped launch a scam awareness nonprofit, and even began consulting with banks on how to better educate retirees. Her tragedy turned into a mission. Today, Amanda still lives modestly in a smaller home than she had hoped. But she has something far more valuable now: purpose. She often says, if my story can stop one more person from losing everything, then it was worth sharing. Her journey serves as a powerful reminder, even the smartest people can be deceived when emotions cloud judgment. And in a world full of wolves in sheep's clothing, sometimes your greatest protection is simply knowing the warning signs. The warning signs were always there, Amanda realized in hindsight. The high return rate, the urgency, the exclusivity. But in the moment, it all felt logical because it had been wrapped in trust. Richard hadn't just promised money. He had made her feel seen, valued. And that emotional connection was the weapon. Amanda began studying how scams work, diving into behavioral psychology and fraud tactics. What she discovered shocked her even more. These con artists use scripts, psychological triggers, and even AI tools to manipulate victims. Some even undergo training to mimic empathy. They don't just steal money, they hijack your brain. One expert explained to her, scammers don't look for dumb people. They look for emotional gaps. That line haunted Amanda, because her emotional gap had been loneliness and hope. She had been retired for less than a year. Her kids had moved out. Her friends were still working. She had time, money, and a desire to feel purposeful. Richard had filled that space temporarily. Amanda became determined to spread awareness, especially among retirees. She worked with a financial journalist to create a free ebook titled The 5 Questions to Ask Before Trusting Any Investment. She started weekly Zoom sessions, sharing her story and teaching others how to verify credentials, spot red flags, and resist pressure. Slowly, Amanda's voice became a source of light for others. Victims from across the country wrote to her, thanking her for breaking the silence. She would often cry reading their letters. It didn't erase her pain, but it gave it meaning. Amanda's story began to appear in local newspapers, then national blogs, and eventually in a documentary series on financial fraud. A producer approached her with a request to dramatize her story for a major streaming platform. She hesitated at first, realizing the trauma was exhausting. But the opportunity to warn millions was too important. The docuseries aired under the name Broken Trust, and Amanda's episode was one of the most viewed. She watched herself being portrayed by an actress with tears in her eyes. It was surreal, seeing her worst moments recreated. But it also marked a kind of closure. The world now knew her story. She wasn't just a statistic. She was a face, a voice, a survivor. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Amanda was still rebuilding. Financially, things were tough. She had sold her car, downsized her house, and taken freelance consulting gigs to stay afloat. Emotionally, it was a daily battle. Some days, she still felt the sting of betrayal so deeply it made her physically ill. But she kept showing up for the people who needed her. And she found strength in small wins, helping someone avoid a scam, seeing her story used in a high school curriculum, receiving a call from a single mom who said, "Because of your video, I didn't send that money." Those moments reminded Amanda that loss doesn't have to define you, but how you respond to it can. One of the most painful aspects of Amanda's journey was the lack of support from institutions. Her bank refused to reverse the transaction citing policy. Law enforcement took months to respond. The SEC redirected her to consumer protection services that had backlogs for weeks. It felt like shouting into the void. Amanda kept thinking, if someone had just called me after the first transaction, if there was just one warning, the system didn't just fail. Herod ignored her. That's why she started lobbying for change. Amanda met with local lawmakers and proposed a bill requiring financial institutions to flag large wire transfers made by retirement accounts, especially to offshore entities with no verifiable business registration. To her surprise, some officials listened. A senator from her state invited her to testify before a committee. Her words were emotional but firm. We're not just losing money. We're losing dignity. We're losing trust. And without trust, our financial system collapses. That line was quoted in multiple articles the next day. Amanda's push sparked a small wave of policy review discussions. It was a massive reform, but it was a start. And for Amanda, that meant hope. She never wanted revenge. She wanted prevention. She didn't care if her face was everywhere. She cared that someone out there might hear her story before it was too late. As Amanda continued to share her experience, she began mentoring other victims through their healing process. One of them was a 27-year-old woman named Nicole, who had lost $75,000 in a crypto investment scam. Nicole had been suicidal when she found Amanda's video. "You saved my life," she told her in a private Zoom call. That moment changed Amanda forever. From that day forward, she created a support group called Safe Step, where scam victims could meet virtually, share their stories, and learn coping strategies. The group grew rapidly from 10 people to over 300 in less than a year. Amanda invited financial experts, therapists, and even former scammers who had turned whistleblowers to speak during live sessions. It became more than a group, it became a movement. People began emailing their banks and asking for scam training. Churches invited Amanda to speak. Seniors clubs requested her materials. Amanda realized that education was the real vaccine against fraud. And while she had lost money, she had gained something much deeper, a calling. She was no longer the woman who lost $300,000. She was now the woman who saved others from losing everything. And in that transformation, she found something that not even money could buy: meaning. Today, Amanda keeps a framed photo on her desk. It's not of her family or her past vacations, it's a screenshot of the last email she ever received from Richard. A lie, promising that everything is fine. She keeps it not out of anger, but as a reminder. A reminder that evil often wears a smile, that confidence can be faked, that any can be fooled. But more importantly, it reminds her of how far she's come. From victim to advocate, from silence to strength. Amanda knows she'll never get her money back. But she's gained something far more powerful: resilience. She now works with cybersecurity firms as a victim advisor, helping them create better training for scam prevention. Her YouTube channel, which began as a single video sharing her experience, now has over 400,000 subscribers. Each week, she posts new interviews, case studies, and scam alerts. Her audience includes not only victims, but also teachers, students, and policymakers. Amanda is proof that a single voice, even one broken by loss, can echo far beyond what it ever imagined. And to anyone watching her story now, she offers one message: don't be ashamed. Be aware, learn, speak. And if you've been scammed, know this: your story isn't over. In fact, it might just be beginning. Behind Amanda's success as an advocate was still a person dealing with invisible scars. The trauma didn't vanish just because she found purpose. Some nights, she would wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, dreaming of Richard's voice echoing in her mind. She would check her bank accounts obsessively, even though she had little left. Therapy became a necessity. She met weekly with a trauma specialist who helped her process not just the scam, but the internalized guilt. Amanda had blamed herself for months. She had called herself naive, foolish, reckless. But therapy helped her understand that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's humanity. She learned to forgive herself, and eventually, she stopped seeing herself as broken. That change reflected in her work. Her videos became not only educational, but also deeply empathetic. She didn't just warn people about scams, helped them reclaim their dignity. In one powerful episode, she sat down with 3 other victims, all of different backgrounds, to discuss how shame had silenced them. The comment section exploded with stories. One man wrote, "I've been hiding for 2 years. I cried watching this." Another said, "This gave me the courage to tell my wife the truth." Amanda realized her real mission wasn't just to fight fraud, it was to break the silence it leaves behind. Amanda also started receiving invitations from universities. Psychology departments, business ethics classes, and even tech innovation courses wanted her perspective. She wasn't an academic, but her experience offered something no textbook could. In one lecture, a student asked her, "Would you go back and undo everything if you could?" Amanda paused for a long moment before answering. "It'd undo the pain, sure. The nights I couldn't breathe. The trust I lost in myself. But I wouldn't undo the purpose. If I could have found it another way, I would. But since I didn't, I'm making the most of the way I did." That honesty moved the room. Professors began integrating her story into their curriculum. One ethics professor said, "Amanda's story is the modern parable of blind trust and emotional exploitation." She had unintentionally become a case study cautionary tale turned role model. But Amanda never let the attention cloud her intentions. She kept her work grounded, raw, and personal. She still responded to messages herself. She still read every email, even when it took hours. And she never accepted money from victims for her support sessions. "I've already been paid," she'd joke. "Just not in the way I expected." Meanwhile, the darker side of Amanda's work began to emerge. As her online presence grew, she became a target again not of financial scams, but of online harassment. Some trolls accused her of faking her story. Others mocked her vulnerability. "If you're dumb enough to get scammed, you deserve it," one comment read. Amanda was shaken. For someone who had already endured so much, this felt like another betrayal. She considered quitting. But once again, the community she built became her shield. Thousands of followers flooded the hateful comments with messages of support. Some even created videos defending her. Amanda saw something beautiful emerge: solidarity. She reported the abuse, took extra precautions, and learned how to digitally protect herself. But more importantly, she turned the experience into another teaching moment. She did a video titled "The Second Scam: Victim Shaming in the Digital Age." It struck a chord. The video gained over 1 million views in a week. Mental health professionals, journalists, and even tech CEOs shared it. Amanda realized that awareness alone wasn't enough. Empathy needed to be part of the solution. Scams didn't just steal money, they stole confidence, credibility, and community. And victim blaming only made recovery harder. In response to the online abuse, Amanda partnered with a mental health organization to launch a hotline specifically for scam victims. The hotline was staffed by trained volunteers, some of whom were former victims themselves. It offered free counseling, legal resources, and most importantly, a listening ear. Within months, the hotline had helped over 10,000 callers. Amanda named it the second voice, symbolizing the voice that scammers tried to silence. The impact was undeniable. People who had been hiding in shame now had a place to turn. One caller said, "You saved me from disappearing into the darkness." For Amanda, it was the most important work she had ever done. She continued to advocate not just for scam prevention, but for systemic reform. She pushed for new legislation that would require AI-generated content to be watermarked, since deepfakes and voice cloning had played a role in her own scam. Her proposal gained traction after several tech leaders backed it. Amanda began appearing on panels alongside cybersecurity experts and fintech CEOs. She was no longer just a victim or an advocate, she was becoming a leader in the digital safety movement. Yet she never forgot her roots. She still opened her emails every morning, still answered calls, still made time for the stories that echoed her own. Years had passed since Amanda lost her money, but the journey still felt fresh in her heart. She had rebuilt her life, not in the way she once imagined, with real estate and financial growth, but with impact, relationships, and meaning. She often said, "They stole my money, but I kept my soul." That became the tagline of her channel. Her story was shared in classrooms, churches, even courtrooms. Judges referenced her testimony when sentencing online fraudsters. Nonprofits used her materials in scam awareness kits. Amanda had become more than a survivor, she had become a symbol. But she always remained humble. In one video, she addressed a new wave of viewers. "I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to prepare you. Fear isolates us. Awareness connects us. If you've ever felt ashamed because someone tricked you, know this: shame belongs to the liar, not the listener. To the manipulator, not the manipulated." Her words touched hearts. Her face became familiar not just for tragedy, but for resilience. Amanda often ended her talks with a quiet but powerful line: "You don't need to be loud to be strong. Just clear. And I'm here to be clear for you." Amanda's voice had become clear and impossible to ignore. Her story reached international audiences, and soon victims from Europe, Asia, and South America began contacting her. Despite language barriers, the emotional truth of their experiences transcended words. She began collaborating with translators to subtitle her content, creating a multilingual resource hub for scam victims around the world. Her message was now global: that shame thrives in silence, and healing begins with sharing. One woman from Spain wrote to Amanda, "You helped me find the words I couldn't say. Gracias." Another from Nigeria said, "Your strength gave me courage to confront my scammer publicly." Amanda's impact went further than even she realized. Universities began assigning her videos as required material in cybersecurity and psychology programs. Survivors formed their own regional chapters of Safe Step, organizing meetups and awareness campaigns. It was a domino effect, one woman's story creating a wave of prevention, healing, and empowerment worldwide. And yet, Amanda kept her process grounded. She still filmed her videos at home, with natural light, sitting at the same wooden table where she had once cried after realizing her loss. That table was now a place of purpose, a place of truth, and with every new story she helped uncover, it became a place of redemption. One day Amanda received an anonymous email. The subject line read, "You don't know me, but I knew him." Inside was a long letter from someone who claimed to have worked with Richard Evanshire scammer. The sender described the operation in detail, the scripts they used, the fake databases, the offshore servers. It was a chilling read. But what struck Amanda most was the final sentence. "I watched your video. And I'm sorry. I left the group. I want to help." It was the first time Amanda felt that maybe, just maybe, something had broken inside the machine. Her pain had reached even the other side of the scam. She shared the email, with permission, in one of her episodes titled, "When the Scam Cracks." It was her most viral video to date. People were stunned to hear how calculated everything had been, from voice modulation software to simulated tax documents. Amanda explained it all calmly, without drama. Her tone was no longer that of a victim. It was of a teacher. Her audience listened not with pity, but with respect. Even law enforcement reached out to her for insights. Amanda knew she had entered a new phase. She wasn't just telling her story anymore. She was now helping shape the future of online protection. In that new phase, Amanda took one bold step. She wrote a book titled Stolen Signals: How I Lost Everything and Found Something Greater. It wasn't just a memoir, it was a guide, a roadmap, a manifesto. She spent a year writing it, pouring every lesson, every heartbreak, and every triumph into its pages. The book became a bestseller in its category within weeks of release. Readers praised it for being raw, insightful, and life-saving. It was translated into 6 languages. Book clubs selected it. High schools used it for digital literacy weeks. Amanda's words were no longer just a warning, they were a movement. With proceeds from the book, Amanda expanded the Second Voice hotline, hired full-time therapists, and launched an educational grant for students pursuing cybersecurity and digital ethics. Her influence reached Capitol Hill, where a bill inspired by her testimony, the Digital Protection and Victim Support Act, was introduced. It included mandatory scam awareness training for banks, legal aid funding for scam victims, and greater regulation of anonymous financial accounts. Amanda sat in the gallery the day it was debated. Tears filled her eyes, not because she needed justice for herself, but because future victims might now have something she never did: protection. Amanda's legacy was no longer in question. She had turned pain into progress, silence into sound, and loss into leadership. Still, she never claimed to be a hero. "I'm just someone who didn't want to die with this story inside me," she once said during a live Q&A. That humility made her even more relatable. In one touching moment, she received a letter from a 13-year-old boy whose grandmother had been scammed. "We watched your video together," he wrote, "and now, I want to become someone who stops people like that." Amanda kept the letter framed next to her desk. It was a daily reminder that her story wasn't just about what she had lost, but what others had gained from it. She continued to speak, to write, to answer late-night emails from strangers pouring out their grief. She never grew tired of hearing the words, "Because of you it made every sleepless night worth it." Every flashback, every panic attack, every moment of doubt. Because Amanda had become what she never imagined: a lighthouse, a beacon for those lost in digital storms. And in being that light, she had finally found her own way home, to a lake house or a quiet retirement, but to a life filled with meaning, mission, and impact. And now, as you finish this video, Amanda would want to leave you with just one message: ask questions. Never feel rushed. And remember, trust should be earned, not offered freely. Not in today's world. Her words aren't meant to scare, but to empower. If Amanda's story reached you today, it's because you understand the value of staying informed. And if you are someone you know has been targeted by a scam, know this: you are not alone, and your story matters. If Amanda could rebuild from the ashes of $300,000 lost, then so can you. So take a deep breath. Stay alert. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, the next person who avoids losing everything might do so because you took the time to pass this forward. Thank you for watching. This is more than just a video. It's a lifeline. And together, we're building a world where scammers lose their power, not because they stop lying, but because we stop listening. Stay safe, stay smart, and stay strong.